Folks, prepare your questions, and remember, in the world of ABM, it's all about quality over quantity. So I'll let each panelist introduce themselves, starting with Bowie.
Yeah, hi everyone. So I'm a product manager at Rollworks, and Rollworks is an ABM platform that drives revenue for B2B businesses by connecting account-based and contact-based insights with multi-touch advertising and outreach strategies. And I've been with the company since its inception in 2017. And my focus at Rollworks has been primarily on the insights aspects of the platform and our integration. So looking forward to chatting with you all more today.
Then we'll go to Brenna.
Awesome. Thank you, Desiree. Hi, everyone. My name is Brenna Zanatti. I'm a senior professor on the HubSpot Academy team. In that role, I primarily focus on creating content for the solutions partner network of HubSpot, but also just more of our kind of technical focused content in HubSpot Academy. I've been with HubSpot for 2 years. Prior to joining that team, I worked for an ABM technology company called Terminus. And then 1,000 years ago, when I moved to Atlanta, I worked for a HubSpot partner agency and was a member of a HUG, very similar to this one. So excited to be chatting with you all today.
Lots of HubSpot in there. And then a face that you guys already know, former HUG leader, Dustin Brackett.
I got kicked out. And Brenna, we won't tell Bowie that you worked at Terminus, okay?
It's okay. We've already talked about it. All good. All good.
Friendly competition.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dustin Brackett. I'm the founder and CEO of HIVE Strategy. We've been a HubSpot solutions partner for more than 10 years now. So we started in kind of the infancy of HubSpot. I'm also the author of Market Like a Human, and excited to be here today.
So as you can tell, super knowledgeable panel, and they're going to give you a lot of insights into ABM today. So to kick this off, the first question that I'm going to ask to all of the panelists is, can each of you share a real world example of how ABM has transformed a marketing campaign or strategy with your respective organizations or past organizations? We'll start with Bowie. He's just the first one by me.
Yeah. So when I think of ABM, the promise of ABM is to really generate more pipeline by identifying good accounts that will ultimately speed up sales cycles and realize revenue faster. And so what our marketing and sales team did at Rollworks was really twofold. We said, hey, we want to be able to capture demand more efficiently. And the way that we did this was by segmenting out this pre-opportunity or pre-deal buying journey, which enabled us to identify both contacts and accounts that were demonstrating high levels of intent and engagement. And we did this by creating a stage that we called Sales Ready, where we would be able to pass these accounts and contacts to sales so that they could begin outreach. And once an account or contact was qualified in this sales ready stage, we created some automations in our CRM to make sure these accounts and contacts were assigned to a sales rep if they were not already. And then we created some rep level dashboards to highlight these accounts and contacts that needed attention. And we called these, Act Now dashboards. And the second aspect that we implemented was really a way to make sure we had a good pipeline of these sales ready accounts. And we did that by running some pretty efficient one-to-many tactics like web and LinkedIn advertising to generate that intent and engagement from these folks. And then because our goal was pipeline generation, we measured the increase in opportunity creation rate. And what we found was that when an account qualifies for the sales ready stage, those accounts were actually 3 times more likely to become a deal than accounts that simply just visited the website once. And then taking it a step further, we said, we want to make sure that sales is acting on these accounts. And what we found was that when sales acted on these accounts within 7 days of that sales ready qualification, that conversion rate to an open deal increased by 2x. And so ultimately, what we saw was a 6 times improvement in converting accounts to open deals simply by making some process changes using data that we already had at our fingertips. So we're really pleased with this, and it wasn't too difficult to get off the ground.
Good to hear. Brenna?
Yeah, those are some awesome results, Bowie. So I'll share kind of two examples from my time at Terminus. And while I was there, half the time I worked in customer success. So saw a lot of examples from customers as well. But internally, I think two areas where we saw account-based strategies work particularly well were first in outbound prospecting. So very similar, I would say, to what Bowie's team did. Our demand gen team worked with our sales development leaders to create target account lists based on our ICP or our ideal customer profile. And then marketing would generate weekly reports of new target accounts for those SDRs to work or to prospect into. And I think having that specific list of folks to go after every week really drove efficiency in that role. So we saw increased response rates, more meetings booked by SDRs. But it also really allowed sales development reps to get more personalized in their outreach, which is super important for an account-based approach. So they would do things like send quick intro videos in their emails, which got a lot of engagement and follow-up. But they could also focus their time on sharing more educational resources in their outreach, like e-guides or industry-specific resources we had created versus just asking for a meeting or asking for something out of the gate in those initial emails. So yeah, outbound prospecting was super effective. And then we also saw a lot of success in using ABM tactics for customer marketing, which I think maybe most folks don't always think about immediately when they think of ABM use cases. But our customer marketing team really used ABM tactics pretty heavily for things like retention and expansion plays. So we used a lot of our own software to create things like targeted ads, very similar to Rollworks, to really drive awareness for things like new product launches. We also did it drove plays to really support customer success and our account management teams in connecting with additional stakeholders to drive expansion for things, opportunities rather, and also to try to get more deeply threaded in accounts to secure things like renewals. We use tactics like direct mailers to drive attendance for maybe exclusive events or workshops, again, to get in front of those key stakeholders' accounts, both for prospects and customers. So customer marketing, outbound prospecting worked super well for us.
I'm definitely not writing down the intro videos. Idea to take back to HIVE. Dustin,
Totally.
write it down. All right, and Dustin, last person.
I love one of the things that you said there, like the direct mailers, like that. It feels so old school and like something that like all of us have like left way in the rearview mirror. But it's funny how like some of those things are starting to like come back around and be effective again because nobody's doing them.
Totally.
So I think, yeah, we work almost exclusively with like B2B brands, lots of education needed, long sales cycles, things like that. And in order to be effective for them, like we've got to really target who they're talking to, who they're getting in front of, and really pay attention to those intent signals. And so, one of my favorite plays is a re-engagement campaign. So, all of us have kind of closed lost deals, deferred deals, follow up later, things like that are just kind of sitting there stale. I love to run a re-engage campaign that like, hey, let's get ads in front of those people that we had good conversations with in the past and kind of spark that interest again. So I think that's been one of my kind of favorite go-tos to just really, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit there, right? Like maybe timing wasn't good, but maybe timing's better now. A lot changes over the course of a few months. And then we also kind of have jumped a little bit on kind of that direct mail kind of train. One of my favorite apps in the HubSpot marketplace is Scribeless. So we're running a campaign where, if one of our kind of B2B SaaS companies has a really good demo and there's good intent triggers, like we're sending out handwritten letters, just to kind of push things over the top a little bit. So I think there's a lot of cool things that you can do to personalize and make those prospects and those customers really feel seen, and not like they're one of many that you're sending this messaging to.
Personalization is key in this day and age. HubSpot is known for its comprehensive marketing suite. How does your platform specifically support and enhance ABM strategies, Brenna?
Yeah, so I'll give kind of just a quick run through of tools that we have designed specifically for ABM for anyone that isn't familiar. I'll also drop a link after I go through this if you want to learn more. But on certain subscription levels, there are ABM specific tools that you can turn on in your HubSpot account. And doing that enables things like being able to leverage the target accounts homepage, which is kind of like a command center that both marketing, sales, I would say, even if your service teams are on HubSpot, they can work out of there. It allows you to view any accounts that you've tagged as target accounts by things like tier. You can monitor progress on engagement with sales and marketing materials and things like that. You can also get recommendations on other similar accounts that you might want to add to your target account list, which is awesome. Those tools also enable things like ABM specific properties. So being able to tag an account as a target account, being able to assign things like ICP tier or buying role, which can be really helpful for segmentation and personalized outreach. There's also some automation built into that. So ABM specific workflows, tagging accounts as targeted accounts automatically create some ABM specific segmentation lists, reporting. We have ABM specific reports that come with that. And also some cool things like company level scoring versus like a lead or contact level scoring. Our Slack integration can be really great to help with ABM plays. So, you think about creating a Slack channel to discuss a specific account or a specific deal, and being able to, inside of Slack, get real-time kind of metrics and updates associated with that, which is really great for collaboration. And so you don't have to jump between a lot of tools. And then also just channels like advertising integrations allow you to create company-specific audiences through channels like LinkedIn to create some of that targeted outreach. I would also say, most of you probably know, HubSpot is really leaning into ABM. We're making huge into AI, hopefully into ABM more as well. But really, AI is becoming such a big part of our product. It's becoming deeply integrated in all areas of the product. So I really think using AI to really scale ABM plays, especially with things like content and outreach personalization, have a big application there. And I would also say there's some, at Inbound every year, there's always a lot of exciting product announcements and product updates. So part of that fall spotlight product update may include some things that are going to be great for ABM applications. So definitely be on the lookout there.
Okay, a few little sneak peeks. Dustin, from your experience at HIVE Strategy, what are some common challenges companies face when implementing ABM, and how can they overcome these obstacles?
Yeah, I think there's a couple that come to mind. First is audience. I think that a lot of companies struggle with audience size and number of companies. So whether it's they're trying to paint the ocean and every technology business in the world is the perfect customer, and so I'm going to try to advertise to all of them, or they're like, hey, that one over there, that one company right there, that's who I want to advertise to. I think that becomes really difficult. Trying to coach and get people to understand, when we're going really an account-based marketing approach, and we're not talking hey, we're going after these contacts, we're saying we're going after these accounts. We want to have a good group of audience, a big audience, right? So we want to have ideally a 1 to 100 ratio of company to audience, people that work at that company that we can advertise to. And it is very much budget based, right? We've got to the larger your budget, the more of the ocean you can paint. But you've got to really kind of take that into account of like, how many people are we targeting at these specific accounts? Because it can get very redundant. It can get very stale very quickly. Or you could just get into a situation where you're like, hey, this isn't working because you're targeting 50,000 companies. Like, you've got to be very strategic and refine. And I think that's one area that a lot of people kind of struggle with it. And then I think the other side is thinking about ABM like it's just lead gen. And I think that, if you're going the route of like, hey, it's strictly lead gen, I need leads coming in this minute, like that's not really the play here. Like, this is much more of a long game. It's a branding play. It's a penetration play into specific businesses, not necessarily putting out Google search campaign and, hey, anyone that's searching for inbound marketing, they're going to click on us and fill out a form. So I think those two are kind of big pieces that need to be considered as you're going into an ABM campaign or considering an ABM campaign.
Bowie, how does Rollworks utilize data and analytics to refine and target ABM campaigns more effectively?
Yeah, so like I mentioned at the jump, the promise of ABM is to really generate more pipeline by identifying these good accounts, which will ultimately speed up those sales cycles and realize that revenue faster. So at Rollworks, we're really focused on 3 metrics. The first is going to be opportunity creation rate. The second is sales cycle length. And the third is win rate. And we slice these metrics in a few different ways, but fundamentally what we're analyzing is, around, are these fit, intent, and engagement signals helping to drive these metrics in a positive direction? And then we also ask ourselves, is sales acting on these signals? It's the old adage of, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's around to hear it, does it make a sound? So if an account is demonstrating that buying behavior, but no one is there to capture that buying behavior, to capture that demand, you're going to miss out on it. And then finally, is advertising helping to influence accounts to move through that buying journey at a more efficient rate? And if the answer to all of these is yes, then that's great. Maybe there are some optimizations that you can make, some tweaks that you can make to your ICP definition. Maybe there are some changes that you can make to the keywords and topics that you're tracking for intent. Maybe you can start to refine that buying journey segmentation a little bit more. But if the answer to any of those questions is no, you really want to focus on 2 things. The first is going to be around process breakdowns. So without having marketing and sales working in concert to prioritize those right accounts, then things are going to be very difficult. And then the second thing to assess is, are the fit, intent, and engagement signals that you're using the right ones? And in general, what we found across all of our customers is that, high fit accounts are 2 times more likely to become an open opportunity and nearly 4 times more likely to become a customer. When we see spikes in engagement, again, those are going to be 2 times more likely to become an open opportunity or an open deal. So it really is a question of making sure that you are operationalizing the data in the best way possible. And the way that works is really just having really tight alignment with sales counterparts.
So you kind of touched on the next question, which I'm going to ask of all of you. What key metrics should companies focus on to measure the success of their ABM efforts? So I don't know if you have anything to add on that, but I'll let you start.
Yeah, sure. So again, the 3 metrics that we really focus on are opportunity creation rate, sales cycle length, and win rate. And there's going to be many supporting metrics that you can look at, and things that we care deeply about at Rollworks is the progression rate in these early stages before that deal has ever been created, before a company's ever interacted with anyone on your sales team. But we look particularly at how advertising or how advertising is influencing that progression. And so what we want to see is that accounts that are influenced by ads are more likely to progress in that buying journey and to progress faster.
Brenna?
Yeah, so I think maybe to add on to what Bowie shared, I think some things that I think about too, or like how I think about categorizing ABM measurement is kind of in maybe 3 buckets. Like the first being account engagement, which is, you know, like how are target accounts interacting with my marketing and sales or customer service activities. So this could include things like page views, content downloads, email opens and replies, you know, social media interactions, event attendance. You know, it includes the number of qualified target accounts that are identified by marketing, maybe new contacts generated in target accounts. And also like account coverage, like how many contacts do we have overall in these accounts? And then how many contacts are we identifying in those key buying roles? Can be really good early signals. Definitely pipeline or deal velocity, you know, progression through the sales cycle, hopefully shortening that. And also just revenue, like how are target accounts contributing to revenue overall, maybe across all target accounts, but even also by things like account tier, if you're tiering out your target accounts and segmenting them that way. And then another thing I would say, similar to what Dustin shared earlier, is one way to not think about measuring the success of your ABM programs is on metrics like leads generated. I think with ABM, you're always wanting to tie even marketing efforts back to revenue, attribution in marketing influence revenue, since ultimately that's what everyone cares about in business anyways, right? So that can be really hard, I think, for marketers to shift their mindset around that. And then, you know, like rather than prospecting into this huge pool of seemingly random people on the internet, many of which may not be qualified, you know, using ABM to confirm that the accounts that you're targeting are the right ones, and focusing on driving maybe leads, I guess, in those accounts should really be the focus. So marketing influence engagement, meetings, opportunities, close won deals. And I think having that shared scorecard across those teams, marketing, sales, service, can really help with that.
Dustin?
Yeah, I think really, I mean, you guys kind of hit it on the head, but I like what we're looking at, like from our agency, is like most of our clients are not strictly running an ABM campaign, right? Like they've got content they're putting out, they're running search advertising, and they're running like lots of different avenues that all kind of ideally are rowing in the same direction for their marketing, right? And so it does become a little more difficult to measure the effectiveness of ABM, because it isn't like, hey, we generated 100 leads from ABM, because it's just not really how that's meant to work. What we do look at is the influence, right? Like of the deals that we're closing, of the deals and like even good conversations or good sales calls that we're having, how many of those were influenced by our ABM campaign? And I think that's really kind of the ideal approach with it. And I think that helps to kind of refine who are we targeting, what is our messaging, what is our creative, things like that. But I think you have to kind of look at it holistically and just kind of be honest with yourself. Like ABM isn't going to be the full process that generates a closed won deal, right? Like they're going to be touched in a bunch of different ways. They're going to be touched organically and through paid search and through your RollWorks campaign and through organic social and like email and like all of these different ways that you're kind of marketing to your audience. So I think it's a little naive to just say like ABM generated this and really start to just look at like how is it influencing moving people through the pipeline and getting to that closed one.
That's a great answer. Brenna, Without giving too much away, how do you foresee the role of technology evolving in the context of ABM over the next couple of years?
Hopefully I'm giving nothing away because these are just my best guesses. Yeah, I think really, really, kind of three things, or maybe two things I think that are probably obvious is definitely first, I think things like AI and automation are going to have a huge influence, really not only on ABM, but I think on the way all of us do business today. But from an ABM context, I think AI and automation is really going to help us, discover targeted accounts more easily, streamline our efforts, and really optimize our ABM plays. I think we're already seeing this technology becoming more and more integrated into the platforms we're already using, let alone like new technology becoming available. So I think, things I mentioned earlier, it's going to help us be better at personalization. It's really going to help us scale that personalization in that targeting, which I think we alluded to maybe a little earlier. Like in the early days of ABM, that was a lot more manual effort. Especially creating personalized assets for specific accounts. I think that's going to become a lot easier. I think they're going to help us get better at multi-channel outreach, which we know is super important to getting in front of folks today. And I think it's just maybe related to this. I think we're going to get better data and insights as technology advances. So things like intent data, which have been around for a while. I think the effectiveness of that technology is only going to get better. So we're going to get better at identifying accounts that are a good fit for our business, but that are also potentially in market for products or services that we sell. And then I also think hopefully we're going to see more data aggregated from multiple sources. So having all your data in one place from your CRM, from social media, from your website, from your other point solutions into these unified platforms, I think is really going to help go-to-market teams get more of that comprehensive view of their target accounts, understand their behaviors across those different channels and efforts, get better at predicting needs. And I think also like having those systems integrated are going to enable or support just better alignment and collaboration across internal go-to-market teams. So again, no promises there, but that's what trends that I'm seeing and definitely what I hope for all of us.
Okay, you can spill the secrets a little later.
Possibly. If I want to stay employed at HubSpot, you might have to wait till inbound, but I'll share what I can.
Fine. For Hive strategy and role works, can you discuss a specific technique or approach within ABM that you find particularly effective for mid-sized businesses? I'll start with Bowie.
Yeah, so generating demand is always going to be challenging. It can be expensive, but capturing existing demand is going to be much easier and much cheaper. So we always recommend that folks start by identifying the contacts and accounts that are showing that hand-raising behavior, but where marketing and sales is not helping to nurture them. And reaching out at the right moment is always going to be key to moving deals through the stages, ultimately getting them to become a customer. And kind of touching on what Brenna said around that data unification, you can use a lot of existing tools that are writing data back to a platform like HubSpot to create workflows where you're able to automate the contacts that are showing that hand-raising behavior into email sequences. You can use platforms like Rollworks to automate adding accounts and contacts into advertising campaigns when they show that hand-raising behavior. You can use HubSpot workflows to trigger sales notifications to ensure that when an account or contact reaches a certain threshold of intent and engagement, that sales is notified so that they can outbound. And ultimately, it's all about kind of capturing that existing demand before you move further up funnel to generate demand, which is going to be pricier.
Gotcha. Dustin?
Yeah, I agree. I think that I've talked about a couple that I really like. So re-engaging with old stale deals. We know these people, we know about their companies. We've had good conversations with them before. I love that one. I think that's very low hanging fruit. And like the gifting slash direct mail kind of piece, it can get a little expensive. So, you know, you do have to be kind of cautious of that. That is one reason, you know, I like the scribe lists, or handwritten is another one that is fairly low cost. You can send a nice personalized message through the mail, things like that. But I think like really the biggest technique that I think everyone needs to master if you're going to be good at ABM is sales and marketing alignment. Like, it can't be a situation where you have this ABM campaign running, you're generating a lot of interest, and people are coming to the website and they're raising their hand, like Bowie said, but sales doesn't know what to do with it, or they're not reaching out in time, or the opposite, sales was reaching out to everyone that comes to your website, and you know, then it becomes this awkward conversation of we weren't ready for that. Excuse me. So I think that like having really strong SLAs and kind of really determining whether it is through automation, creating a workflow that triggers and you know, says, hey, sales guy, call this company, they're ready, or you know, standard handoff kind of SLAs. There has to be a really good process. Otherwise, leads and good fits are going to just fall through the cracks, or you're going to turn them off because now you're calling on them and they weren't ready for that.
I actually took HubSpot's ABM bootcamp, and there was a whole session on marketing and sales alignment. They singled that out to start with that, to push how important it is in ABM.
It's more important in ABM than it is in, I think, any other form of marketing, because it is very sales-driven marketing.
So on that note, I'll ask all of you, what advice would you give to marketing teams who are just beginning to explore ABM as a strategy? I'll start with Bowie.
Yeah, so I think my answer is fully in alignment with what Dustin just said. It's all about partnering with your sales counterparts to identify the accounts that your sales team is assigned or working. And, you know, getting started with ABM can sound daunting, but in reality, you know, we kind of tell all of our customers at Rollworks that ABM is just good B2B marketing and sales practice. And you really don't need to do a million things to get started. It's really, again, that alignment with your sales counterparts and determining how marketing can support nurturing those accounts that sales is going after. And probably the easiest approach to doing that is just bucketing the accounts that sales is working into 3 different groups. You're going to have accounts that have no familiarity with your brand. Maybe they've never been to your website. And for those accounts, you want to focus on driving that awareness through channels like advertising. And then the second bucket is going to be accounts that have some familiarity with their brand, have engaged before. And that's where you're going to want to make sure that sales is aware as soon as any of that hand-raising behavior occurs. And then the third bucket is going to be accounts that are in an active deal cycle with sales. And from there, what you want to do is really just kind of assess the content and resources that you have to make sure that you're meeting any of the content needs that your sales team has. And once you have this alignment down with sales, you can begin to start to do some of the tweaks and optimizations, maybe some of the more sophisticated things like making sure that sales is only getting assigned to accounts that are in your ICP. You can start to segment that buying journey a bit more granularly to have different messaging and personalization there, and ultimately develop those messaging strategies based on the buying journey. But again, that foundation, like Dustin was saying, is really that partnership and alignment with sales.
Dustin?
Yeah, I think mine is just don't try to paint the ocean. There are too many companies that think everybody and their dog is their ideal customer, and it just ends up in wasted budget, little impact. So I think just like be targeted, measure, and iterate. I think that's how you win in ABM.
Brenna?
Totally. Yeah. I will give a big retweet to both Bowie and Dustin on sales and marketing alignment. And I think, I think that also includes a big part of that is agreeing upfront how you're going to measure success, like we talked about earlier. And I think it's, like you build that ideal customer profile together, just to nod to what Dustin just said about not trying to go after everyone, like make sure all teams involved agree on what that ideal customer looks like, creating an open communication and feedback loop between teams to share what's working and what's not. And again, just working off of shared KPIs can make such a huge difference. I would also say, when you're experimenting with ABM or you're piloting it or you're just starting out, it doesn't mean that you're abandoning your old ways of doing things, your old tactics. I actually think inbound marketing tactics can lay a super strong foundation for an ABM strategy. ABM really builds off of inbound by allowing for that targeted and efficient resource allocation to high value accounts. Inbound strategies can really help accelerate interest or engagement with folks. So really thinking about it more as a combined approach helps you attract kind of that broader group of prospects than you would maybe just using a single method or maybe just using traditional methods. And yeah, I would just say be brave, go for it, but definitely, like Dustin said, don't feel like you need to try all things at once. Stick with a strategy that works well for your business and then kind of scale and iterate from there.
Brenna, while I have you in the forefront, can you also provide insights into how HubSpot integrates with other tools and platforms to support a seamless ABM strategy?
Yeah. So if anyone's familiar with the HubSpot app marketplace, we actually have a dedicated section for ABM focused integrations, which includes our integration with the Rollworks platform. So that section includes everything from, ABM platforms like a Rollworks to point solutions for things like account-based advertising or intent data. Also just in general, from an integration standpoint, like CRM integrations, if you're not using HubSpot Smart CRM, really help with that kind of unified data management piece across marketing, sales, service teams. We have deeper integrations for things like data management and data analytics, integrations with content tools that can really help with outreach and personalization, email, events, advertising, anything that you would want to use to create kind of that integrated omni-channel ABM strategy. I think also important, integrations for better data synchronization or collaboration between your internal teams. But even thinking about the integration with Rollworks, for example, having those two platforms speak to each other can help with things like, identifying targeted accounts from HubSpot contact lists inside of Rollworks, or running digital advertising through Rollworks, and then being able to view your ad performance inside of HubSpot, or sending notifications to sales to alert them when target accounts have increased in activity, which can signal kind of potential interest. So again, I think that integrated approach, having all your data in one place, potentially having your channels connected, just makes for more of a seamless ABM strategy.
Absolutely. A question I'll ask of all of you: how do you see ABM evolving in the future, and what should marketers do to stay ahead of the curve? I'll start with Bowie.
I think there's really two things here. The first is the evolving privacy landscape contrasted with the second thing, which is the advancements in AI, which Brenna was talking about not too long ago. So on the first point, the marketing and advertising worlds are shifting away from third-party cookies, as I'm sure many have heard. And the shift is towards an ecosystem that is built on a variety of account and contact identifiers. But there's still this need to be able to reach and influence buyers wherever they are on the open internet. And this landscape is still evolving. So I just suggest to everyone, ask questions to your partners around their approach and thoughts on how technology will need to change to adapt. And the reality is that this privacy forward landscape is evolving very rapidly, and no one really has all of the answers right now, but it's just important to gather information and make sure that your partners are focused on this. And then the second part, contrast this with advancements in AI. And ultimately, we believe that data-driven insights and advanced machine learning is really going to lead to a future where privacy and personalization aren't opposing forces, but can really work together to create both tailored and trusted advertising and marketing offerings.
Got you. Brenna?
Sorry, muting myself so y'all don't hear me drinking my coffee over here. Yeah, I think, very similar to what Bowie just said, I think as it relates to things like advancing technology and AI, I think hyper personalization is going to be more and more relevant. I think like market saturation will only continue this year and beyond. So buyers really need that level of personalization when they're making purchase decisions. And I think my advice is to definitely invest. This might be self-serving, but definitely invest in training and upskilling, whether it's at HubSpot Academy or elsewhere, like staying on top of advancements in ABM tools and technology, in things like AI and data, to really make sure that your team is well equipped to leverage those tools. And if clients are coming to you and have questions about them, you're able to answer those questions. Being ready to integrate those platforms that help you enhance personalization and automation will be huge. I also think like more data-driven decision making around where people are making investments, what accounts they're going after. Teams are really going to leverage more advanced analytics, things like machine learning that Bowie mentioned, I think are going to become huge. And my advice is really to like invest in making your database clean, make that a priority, invest in good data sources, ensure that your data is accurate, it's comprehensive, it's well integrated across systems. I think high quality data is going to be so crucial for effective ABM really now and into the future as well.
Dustin?
I think I'm going to take a little bit of the opposing view. So I am team AI. I think there's a ton of advancements that are happening every day and like will continue to happen as we look into the future of most industries, not just ABM, not just marketing, but I think that's going to impact a lot. So I think like leveraging the right AI and knowing when to leverage AI is going to be really important. I think what will eventually turn is standing out because you're implementing kind of a human approach. So I think things are very cyclical. And so I think like we're going to get into this era where everybody's using AI for everything. And I think it's going to start to become obvious. And so I think what will eventually stand out again is kind of that true human to human marketing approach to things. So I think the tools are great. I think it's a matter of like, we're going to see a lot of companies start to try to implement all of it and try to do use all the different tools that come out and use all of the AI and cut corners and things like that I think will eventually become a negative. So I think I'm very much a proponent of like implementing a human-centered approach to all of your marketing. And so I think that is something that will make businesses stand out as everyone and their dog implements AI.
I wouldn't even have guessed that you were the author of Market Like a Human. Dustin, how can companies align their sales and marketing teams to ensure the success of ABM initiatives? I
think it is really starting with those SLAs. The the worst thing that you can do from an ABM perspective is have marketing run with it and sales is an afterthought, or the opposite. And I think it is one of those things that everyone has to be rowing in the same direction for it to be effective. Knowing when leads are handed off, knowing when to reach out, knowing what kind of is the next step, is so important. So I think that having those conversations, getting all of your stakeholders bought in, what is the messaging? Who is the ICP that you're targeting? Like, what even is that ICP? Starting from the beginning and like, okay, let's build this ideal customer profile together, because I think in a lot of organizations, which is still, it sounds wild in 2024 that we're still talking about like silos, but I think there still are like marketing silos and sales silos, and there's not enough crossover. And I think that can be okay in some situations if you're running an inbound campaign or whatever, and we can just kind of nurture that. In ABM, the wheels fall off. So I think that like you've got to get buy-in from the top down in both divisions. Otherwise, it's not going to be effective.
I feel that. Rollworks or Bowie. What role does personalization play in ABM? And what are some of the best practices for achieving it?
I'll be very brief in answering the first part of the question. It's huge. There's all sorts of stats out there around how personalization helps improve response rates, be it from an email or an online ad. So it's really important. And then in terms of best practices, it really touches on elements of things that Brenna and Dustin have shared earlier, where start small. Don't feel like you need to implement advanced personalization from the get-go. And so the way that I always help advise our customers on how to get started is just personalize based off of that buying journey. And it can be as basic as top of funnel, middle funnel, bottom funnel, and have unique content based off of the stage of where that company is at in the buying journey. And once you've implemented that, there's all sorts of advanced account personalization that you can use, be it through things like web de-anonymization. You can inject things like the company name or the industry and really create these tailored experiences. And then going back to what Dustin said around human marketing, it's critical that when you're sending an email as a sales rep or sending that LinkedIn in-mail, that it is coming from you as a human and cutting through that noise, since we're all getting a ton of automated email and outreach, and people really appreciate when they can tell that an email has been crafted by a human with that personal touch.
So true. For all of you, what industries do you believe are currently underutilizing ABM, and how could they benefit from adopting this strategy? I'll start with Brenna.
Yeah, also just chuckling at Dustin's entry into the chat. We've all been victim of bad personalization tokens. So I think when I was working with customers that were new to ABM or kind of piloting ABM, I think the industries that were a little more challenged or slow to adopt were ones that generally employed more like traditional marketing practices like healthcare, ed tech or higher ed, manufacturing, real estate. And I think the opportunity there is really, in a lot of those industries, they're dealing with complex or super long sales cycles. There's complex buying committees. It's a lot of like relationship based selling. And I think because ABM really allows or stresses the need for that personalized outreach, I think it actually can be very valuable in industries where they have those challenges, really fostering deeper relationships by focusing on key accounts and providing value through those personalized interactions can actually lead to stronger long-term customer relationships or partnerships, better customer retention. Like manufacturing, for example, I think, they have super long sales cycles. Commercial real estate is super similar. And I think ABM is actually can be really suited for those industries. They can also be super competitive industries. So really focusing on things like educational selling, building trust through personalization, and building relationships, I think is super important.
Bowie?
Yeah, similar to what Brenna said. Something that's really surprised me is the lack of adoption by more service-based companies as opposed to technology-based companies. And what we tend to see in service-based companies is that they're very reputation and relationship driven. But ABM can help them get ahead in the RFP processes and monitor those intent signals and react to web engagement. And these service-based companies tend to already have a lot of rich digital assets and case studies. So ABM can really help them in knowing which companies are exploring those assets that they already have. And these service-based industries, like I mentioned, are highly competitive, where the buying committees can be hard to canvas. And ABM can really help solve a lot of those. Yet we don't see a ton of great adoption of ABM strategies within those service-based companies.
Dustin?
That one's interesting, Bowie. I like that. I think not necessarily looking at it from an industry perspective, but from a size of company perspective is interesting. I think for a long time, kind of the several years leading up to now, ABM felt like a very big business kind of approach, right? Like this was only really attainable if you have a huge budget and you're a multinational organization that everyone knows. I don't think it's that anymore. I think advancements in technology and costs coming down and new strategies and things like that, I think that there is much more of an opportunity for those small and mid-sized businesses to actually employ ABM now. Whereas, even a few years ago, it was kind of out of reach, or at least out of reach in an effective way. So I think that has been great to see that kind of that barrier to entry has significantly diminished.
I think we've got time for one more question, and I'll ask this of Brenna. How does HubSpot help in scaling ABM efforts for startups and small businesses?
Yeah, well, Dustin, I feel like you teed me up very nicely for this. I think there is a shifting mindset in from thinking that you needed a ton of resources, you needed to invest a ton of tech into a ton of tech to get started with ABM. And I think the barrier to entry is becoming a lot lower. So I would say from a HubSpot perspective, a lot of the tools, ABM focused tools I mentioned earlier, are available currently on some of our higher package tiers like Pro and Enterprise. But I think because you can effectively have all of your go-to-market teams work out of HubSpot, and with all of our products or our hubs sitting across that smart CRM, I think you can effectively test or run ABM plays even if you don't have access to those ABM specific tools at the moment. So a lot of our free and starter tools like lists, workflows, custom properties, ad management, email marketing and automation and personalization, a lot of that is available to you and can be very easily leveraged to run some basic ABM plays. I would also recommend, if you're eligible, looking into things like the HubSpot for Startups program, which has a ton of great resources and community available. We do have free learning in HubSpot Academy on account-based marketing. And then Desiree already plugged HubSpot Academy boot camps, which I believe registration is opening up again for our next round in September, but we do have an account-based marketing focused one, and those are available to all customers and partners. So definitely check that out. I think it's 6 weeks, if I remember Desiree correctly. Great crew led by a bunch of really awesome instructors. So definitely check that out if it is something you are interested in.
And in the follow-up email, we'll send out a link to some of these resources that we have discussed today. But I just wanted to thank you all for lending your knowledge to us and answering my questions and being here. And just look forward to the Q4 hug coming up or whatever we have going on next. And thank you for coming.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Hope to see you at Inbound.
Bye.